Most people think financial power begins at $1 million. They imagine that wealth starts when investment accounts become six figures, when luxury becomes affordable, when passive income replaces paychecks, or when a bank manager suddenly treats them differently. But the truth is far less glamorous and far more important. Financial power often begins around $25,000, not because $25,000 makes you rich. It doesn't. It won't allow you to retire early. It won't buy freedom from inflation. It won't put you into the same category as investors, executives, or business owners with seven-figure portfolios. And no bank executive is losing sleep because you accumulated $25,000 in savings. What it does is far more significant. It changes the relationship between you and every institution that profits from financial pressure. Below that threshold, millions of working people live inside a zone that appears stable from the outside, but is actually incredibly fragile. They pay their bills, they go to work, they keep the lights on. They aren't technically broke. Yet one unexpected expense can completely alter their financial trajectory for months. This is the territory where financial institutions make some of their most reliable profits. The ideal customer is rarely someone with no money at all. Someone in severe financial distress eventually defaults, disappears, or becomes unable to keep paying. The ideal customer is someone who is almost comfortable, someone productive enough to generate income every month, someone responsible enough to keep making payments, someone stressed enough to need financial products, someone busy enough not to question the cost, someone exhausted enough to accept terms without negotiation. That customer can be monetized for decades. And that is why the first meaningful cash reserve changes everything. Today, I want to show you exactly how. We're going to walk through 5 hidden systems that quietly extract money from people living below the financial safety threshold. Then we'll examine what happens when someone crosses that line and builds a genuine cash reserve, because the most expensive costs in life are often the ones that never appear on a receipt. Before we begin, imagine your financial life as a bridge suspended over a canyon. On one side is survival. On the other side is choice. Most people assume banks own the entire canyon. They don't. They simply own the toll booth sitting in the middle. Every emergency forces you through it. A transmission fails. Toll. A medical bill arrives. Toll. Your rent increases. Toll. A paycheck arrives late. Toll. A family emergency appears. Toll. Every problem becomes an opportunity for somebody else to charge you for being vulnerable. When you build a reserve of roughly $25,000, something remarkable happens. You quietly construct another bridge.
Nobody notices. Your neighbors don't applaud. Your social media followers don't celebrate. There is no trophy. But suddenly, you possess an alternate route. And whenever alternatives appear, pricing power disappears. The first layer of the system is overdraft revenue. Most people underestimate how carefully designed this business model is. Overdraft fees were never built around financially secure customers. They were built around predictable moments of financial stress. Think about the mechanics. You buy a $12 lunch. A subscription renews unexpectedly. An automatic payment clears a day earlier than expected. Your account falls short. Suddenly, a tiny transaction becomes a $35 or $40 mistake. The bank presents this as a convenient service, but from a financial perspective, it is one of the most expensive forms of short-term borrowing ever created. Annualized, some overdraft charges represent interest rates that would make even credit card companies blush.
The most revealing part isn't the amount, it's the timing. These fees arrive precisely when someone is least equipped to absorb them. They don't punish wealth, they monetize vulnerability. Now, imagine the same situation with a $25,000 reserve. The paycheck arrives 3 days late. No problem. The utility bill clears early. No problem. A surprise expense appears. Transfer funds. Problem solved. the emergency never reaches the point where penalties begin. The fee doesn't disappear because you became more disciplined. It disappears because the structure changed. The trap no longer has an entry point. The second layer is credit card interest. This is where the numbers become truly staggering. Credit cards are marketed as convenience, rewards, cash back, travel points, fraud protection, flexibility. And for people who pay balances in full every month, many of those benefits are real. But for households without adequate savings, credit cards often become something completely different. They become emergency funds, disguised as spending tools. The refrigerator breaks, the card absorbs it. The dog needs surgery, the card absorbs it. The transmission fails, the card absorbs it. The air conditioner dies in July, the card absorbs it. Then next month arrives, and the crisis that already happened begins charging rent. A balance of $6,000 at a 24% interest rate can quietly consume more than $1,400 per year in interest alone if carried long enough. Think about that. The emergency happened once. The payment for the emergency keeps happening over and over again. The bank isn't simply lending money, it is collecting revenue from yesterday's stress. This is why a meaningful cash reserve changes the game. When the emergency fund handles emergencies, the credit card returns to its intended role, a payment tool, not a survival tool. The rewards remain, the convenience remains, the interest disappears. You stop becoming the product and start becoming the user. Third layer is the invisible savings trap. Unlike overdraft fees or interest charges, this one doesn't feel painful. There is no alarming notification, no angry email, no overdue warning, just silence. And silence can be expensive. Many people keep cash in accounts earning almost nothing because familiarity feels safe. Their direct deposit works, their debit card works, their mobile app works. Everything is comfortable. Meanwhile, their money is quietly underperforming. Financial institutions understand the value of deposits extremely well. They know cash creates lending opportunities. They know deposits strengthen balance sheets. They know customer inertia is profitable. Suppose someone keeps $25,000 in a traditional account, earning almost zero. Now compare that with a competitive savings vehicle, earning around 4%. That difference can exceed $1,000 annually. Not through investing, not through speculation, not through risk, simply through placement. The lesson isn't that loyalty is bad. The lesson is that convenience often has a hidden price tag. Banks love when customers confuse familiarity with value because familiarity rarely asks questions. The fourth layer is what I call the desperation premium. This may be the most powerful pricing mechanism in personal finance, and it almost never appears on paper. Nobody writes desperation fee on a contract. Instead, it shows up as slightly worse loan terms, higher financing costs, more expensive insurance, poor negotiations, bad purchases, rushed decisions. The reason is simple. When people need solutions immediately, they lose leverage. Imagine two individuals standing in the same repair shop. Both need a new transmission. The repair costs $4,500. The first person has $2,000 available. The second has $25,000 available. The problem is identical. The financial reality is not. The first person needs an answer today. The second person can wait. They can get another quote, negotiate, research alternatives, consider whether repairing the vehicle even makes sense. Time creates options. Options create leverage. Leverage creates savings. This is one of the greatest truths in finance. Liquidity buys patience. And patience is often more valuable than intelligence. Many people think financial success comes from making brilliant decisions. Often, it comes from having enough cash to avoid making rushed ones. Then we arrive at the fifth layer, the most expensive layer of all, the psychological tax. Unlike fees and interest charges, this one never appears on a statement. Yet it may cost more than all the others combined.
Financial stress consumes cognitive bandwidth. When people constantly worry about money, their decision making deteriorates, not because they're irresponsible, because stress is exhausting. Research consistently shows that chronic financial pressure affects attention, planning, memory, and self control. When every month feels like a balancing act, long term thinking becomes difficult. You comparison shop less, you negotiate less, you review contracts less, you avoid checking statements, you seek comfort purchases, you become vulnerable to emotional marketing. The system doesn't necessarily create the stress, it simply learns how to profit from it. Pre approved, limited time offer, buy now, pay later. Skip this month's payment, get cash instantly, no money down.
Messages become incredibly persuasive when someone's nervous system already feels overwhelmed. Financial pressure narrows focus, and narrow focus creates profitable customers. But once a meaningful reserve exists, something subtle changes. Problems still occur. Life remains unpredictable. Unexpected expenses continue appearing. The difference is psychological. A gap emerges between the problem and the reaction. And inside that gap, better decisions become possible. To understand this, consider a man named Michael. Michael is 38 years old. He earns approximately $72,000 per year. After taxes and deductions, his monthly take-home pay averages around $4,800. His rent is $1,850. Transportation costs consume another $700. Utilities, subscriptions, internet, and insurance add roughly $850. Food, fuel, and everyday expenses require another $850. On paper, there should be room to save. In reality, life keeps intervening. A tire replacement, a veterinary bill, a medical copay, an appliance failure, a holiday expense, a repair, another repair, then somehow another repair. For nearly 4 years, Michael's savings account fluctuates between $2,000 and $5,000. Every attempt at progress seems temporary. Whenever he gains ground, life takes it back. Financially, he appears functional. Behind the scenes, he is trapped in a cycle. He occasionally pays overdraft fees. His credit card balance fluctuates between $4,000 and $8,000. He pays interest every month. He accepts mediocre banking products because researching alternatives feels exhausting. He refinances nothing, negotiates nothing, questions nothing. Not because he lacks intelligence, because survival consumes attention. Then something changes. Instead of trying to become rich, Michael decides to become stable. He opens a separate high-yield savings account, not connected emotionally to his daily spending. Different institution, different login, different environment. He automates transfers of $600 after every paycheck. He sells unused recreational equipment, cuts recurring expenses he barely notices, directs a tax refund into savings. The first months feel uneventful. Nothing dramatic happens. No viral success story, no overnight transformation. Then the account reaches $10,000. For the first time in years, an emergency never touches his credit card. Months later, it reaches $15,000. Something interesting happens. His anxiety begins declining, not because life improved, because uncertainty became less threatening. Then, the account reaches $25,000. And this is where the dominoes begin falling. His credit card balances disappear. His utilization ratio improves. His credit score rises. He qualifies for better financing. He refinances a loan and lowers his monthly payments. He increases insurance deductibles because he can actually afford them. Premiums fall. Bank fees suddenly seem ridiculous rather than unavoidable. For the first time, financial institutions must compete for his business. Notice what didn't change. His IQ didn't increase. His work ethic didn't change. His personality didn't transform. His leverage changed. And leverage
changes everything. This is the secret most people miss. The first $25,000 doesn't merely sit there. It improves the performance of every other dollar in your financial life. It reduces friction, eliminates penalties, creates flexibility, improves negotiation, expands options, and transforms emergencies from crises into inconveniences. An inconvenience might cost money. A crisis costs power. Now extend this concept beyond banking. Imagine two employees asking for raises. Both are talented, both deserve more compensation, both perform at a high level. The first employee has $3,000 saved and substantial debt. The second employee has $25,000 saved and no revolving balances. They might use identical words, yet psychologically, they occupy different worlds. One needs the raise, the other wants the raise. That distinction is enormous. Need creates pressure. Pressure creates concessions. The employee who can survive rejection negotiates differently, responds differently, waits differently, explores alternatives differently. Even silence feels different. The reserve account becomes more than money. It becomes an outside option. The ability to walk away, the ability to wait, the ability to choose. Those abilities are extraordinarily valuable, and institutions know it. This is why lifestyle inflation becomes so dangerous immediately after financial stability arrives. The moment people create breathing room, the marketplace rushes in to consume it. A nicer apartment, a luxury vehicle, premium furniture,
Exotic vacations, designer upgrades. Every advertisement whispers the same message. You've earned this. And perhaps you have. But there is something more valuable than the purchase itself: the space, the margin, the flexibility, the reserve. Because once the cushion disappears, leverage disappears with it. Suddenly, every decision becomes urgent again. And urgency is expensive. So, what should someone actually do? First, calculate the cost of instability. Review the previous 12 months. Add every overdraft fee, every maintenance charge, every late payment, every credit card interest payment, every avoidable penalty. The total often shocks people. Many discover that financial instability carries an annual subscription fee measured in hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Second, separate emergency savings from spending money. Distance creates protection. If accessing funds requires an intentional decision, impulsive spending decreases dramatically. Third, eliminate financial leaks before chasing complex investment strategies. Building wealth while constantly paying high interest debt resembles pouring water into a bucket riddled with holes. Repair the bucket first, then fill it. Fourth, understand that $25,000 is not the destination. It is the launch pad. After stability comes investing, retirement accounts, index funds, business opportunities, career advancement, asset accumulation. But growth becomes far more effective when emergencies stop interrupting the process. The people who appear lucky often had one advantage: they possessed liquidity when opportunity arrived. And the people who appear irresponsible are often individuals forced into expensive decisions because they lacked options. That is why I don't view $25,000 as a wealth milestone. I view it as a behavioral threshold, a point where the questions change. Not, can I survive this? But what is the smartest response? Not, will they approve me? But do I even want this offer? Not, can I make the payment? But why am I paying interest in the first place? Financial institutions don't fear your savings because you're wealthy. They fear what savings does to your behavior. The overdraft machine loses access.
The credit card machine loses fuel. The low yield savings trap becomes obvious. The desperation premium weakens. The psychological tax shrinks. And for perhaps the first time in years, your decisions stop being made at the edge of a cliff. You don't gain power by hating banks. You gain power by understanding incentives. Banks are businesses. Lenders are businesses.
Credit card companies are businesses. Their responsibility is to maximize profit. Your responsibility is to avoid becoming the easiest source of it. Build the bridge, cross it, protect it. Because that first $25,000 is not merely money sitting in an account. It is stored patience, stored discipline, stored flexibility, stored breathing room, stored time. And when someone places a bad offer in front of you and expects an immediate answer, that reserve quietly whispers something most people never get to hear. We can wait. And in a world where entire industries profit from your urgency, the ability to wait is where real financial power begins.